Hey peeps, it's Jedd here from Disrupt Tutoring, and as always, it's such a pleasure to join you. Today we're going to deal with some number patterns, and with that in mind, let's get straight into the question. So they've asked us to consider the finite linear pattern of 20, 17, 14, all the way up to negative 103. Okay, finite means that it ends. So let's start off with 3.1. So 3.1, they've asked us for the fourth term of this pattern, which is where those dots are. So we can see that we go from 20 to 17, which is negative 3, 17 to 14, which is negative 3. So we would minus 3 from 14, and therefore the fourth term, so T4, is going to be 11. Right, moving on to 3.2. They've asked us to determine the expression for the nth term. Remember how we do this? We say Tn is equal to, we automatically state that our common difference is minus 3 and times that by n immediately, okay, without thinking too much. Now we subs in 1 to the n, and that's going to give us minus 3, and then we need to try and figure out what to add to the 20, or what to add to the minus 3 in order to get to 20, and that is, we need to add 23 in order to get to the 20. So let's add 23. Now let's test it. Okay, so let's look at the third term, and we put 3 over there, and that's going to give us negative 3 times 3, which is negative 9, plus 23, and that's going to give us the 14. So that's a nice way to check our answer, and it looks like we're on the right track. Right, so let's move on to 3.3. Okay, calculate the number of terms in the sequence. Now we know the very last term in the sequence is this negative 103. So we're going to put that in to our Tn position, minus 3n plus 23. So solving for n is going to give us the number of terms that negative 103 is at. Okay, so let's now solve for n. So the first thing we would do is get rid of our 23 by taking it over to the left-hand side. That would become negative. So we've got negative 1 over 103 minus 23, and that's going to give us negative 126. So that's going to be negative 126 on the left-hand side, minus 3n. We would then divide both sides by negative 3, and negative 126 divided by 3 is going to give us 42 equals n. And that means that there are 42 terms in this sequence. Let's move on to the next one, which is a little trickier. So 3.4, which term is the first to have a negative value? Which term is the first one to have a negative value? Right, so the way we would structure this is we would say, okay, if a term has a negative value, let's call it Tn is less than 0. And we've solved for Tn, okay, in our second question. We've called it negative 3n plus 23. So let's say negative 3n plus 23 is less than 0. Okay, so is less than 0. Right, so now we can say that negative 3n, let's solve for negative 3n. So we're going to keep the negative 3n over there, and that's going to be negative 23. Now we're going to divide both sides by our negative, and remember when we divide by a negative, it swaps our inequality around. So we're going to have that inequality now, and that's going to be n, and that's going to be 23 over 3. Now what is 23 over 3? Well, if we divide 23 by 3, that's going to give us approximately 7.66666, which means that n is still greater than, so n is greater than 7.66 for Tn being less than 0, and that would therefore mean that n is equal to 8, and when n is equal to 8, Tn must be less than 0. Okay, so a tricky one, but if you work through it and you use your inequality rules, you will get to the final answer eventually. Right, let's move on to our last question for this section, 3.5. What is the value of the 19th even valued term in the sequence? Now this one is also a little tricky because we need to figure out how many terms the 19th even valued term is going to be. So let's look at our number pattern that they've given us. They've said to us 20, then 17, then 14. Now we can see clearly that there is going to be an even number every second term. So there's going to be an even number every second term, but we're starting with an even number. So we can't necessarily double this. Let's double this and subtract 1. If we double this and subtract 1, we are going to get the 19th even valued term in the sequence. So that's going to give us 37. Okay, 37. Right, so we got T 37 is going to equal, and we're going to plug the 37 into our general formulas, 3 times 37 plus the 23, and that is going to give us, I'm going to use my calculator nice and cheekily, minus 3 times 37 plus 23, and that gives us negative 88. So negative 88 luckily is an even number, and that is going to be our 19th even value term in the sequence. Remember, because we started with an even value, we didn't double 19, we doubled 19 and subtracted 1 because we started with an even value. Hopefully this helps. Hopefully this makes you a better mathematician when it comes to number patterns. Very special thank you to our sponsors for making this video possible. Remember to read all about them in the description below. Remember to check out our website for more of these epic tutorial videos. If you can't find the answer to your question, remember you can send the question to us and we'll respond with a personalized video just for you. Until the next time, stay epic.